Welcome back to Monday Morning Stretching. Today, we're going to be moving on from the neck and getting into an active warm-up routine for the shoulders that's going to help us warm up all the musculature surrounding the joint so that we're ready for our static stretching routine that we'll do next week, as well as cover some postural corrective exercises that are going to help us with some of the more common issues we see in clinic, namely a forward or rounded shoulder position. So the first thing we're going to cover is where exactly should we be holding our shoulders anyways. For me, the easiest cue to give to clients generally is to assume a wide or broad shouldered position, trying to get as large as possible. And what most people will experience with this is they'll feel the shoulder blades tucking nice and tight to the rib cage. A good way to audit this position to see if your shoulders are at the right height is to stand in front of a mirror. And what we want to see is that from the connection the collarbone has to the sternum here, to the connection it has to the AC or through the AC joint here, we want to see that the collarbone has a slight incline to it. So from that position, we can see the AC joint is slightly higher than the connection here. And if we look from the side, we can see that the shoulder blades are tucked nice and tight to the rib cage with no winging effect coming in at all. This is more or less where we want to live with our shoulders and where we'll tend to set up to start for all of the activities we're going to cover today. So now that we've got our setup position established, we want to start by warming up all the muscles that help control the actual position of the shoulder blade. Now for all of these scapular movements or the movements of the shoulder blade along the rib cage, we're going to do 2 to 3 sets of 10 repetitions at a tempo of 3 to 5 seconds per rep. Now the first movement, shoulder elevation and depression, really looks a lot like a shoulder shrug. So we set up, wide shouldered position, feeling the shoulder blades tight to the rib cage. From there, we're going to bring the shoulders up towards the ears as high as we comfortably can, and then slowly pull the shoulder blades down towards the bum as far as we can before returning back to do a second rep. So the next movement we're going to do is going to be shoulder protraction and retraction. And basically what that means is we're going to set up from our starting position. We're going to protract the shoulders by pushing the shoulder blades as far forward as we can while keeping them nice and tight to the rib cage. And then from there, we're going to retract or pull the shoulder blades back as far as we can, pinching the shoulder blades together. Now there's a couple things to look out for with this movement, or a couple basic errors we tend to see. The first would be a chin poke, or as you pull the shoulders back, you let the chin poke forward. So just make sure you're maintaining a nice tall spine throughout the movement. The other thing to watch out for is during the part where we pinch the shoulder blades, a lot of people will lift the rib cage. So we just want to make sure we keep that rib cage tucked, we keep that head tall, and we maintain a nice, strong, neutral spine throughout the movement pattern. Next up is another pretty basic movement, a shoulder circle pattern. So for this, we're going to set up in our good start position, and we're just going to trace circles with our shoulders. We're going to pull them back, up, forward, and down, making the circles as large as we possibly can. And once again, we're trying to maintain a good, strong core, nice, tall head position, and really stick to that 3 to 5 second tempo. Once we're done with forward shoulder circles, we can obviously go on to backward shoulder circles. This time starting with bringing the shoulders forward, up, back, and down. Once again, trying to keep that chin poke or rib lift at bay. The last range of motion activity we'll do to warm up the shoulders before getting into some of our isometric postural correctives is going to be elbow circles. So we'll just set up, hands comfortably in close towards the shoulder, and we're just going to slowly trace large circles with our elbows, just going through the range of motion of the actual GH joint. Once we've done 10, nice, slow, controlled forward, we can switch and go 10 backwards. And then once we've gone through that, whether we're doing these activities as a circuit or you're doing each individual activity and then giving yourself a 20-second rest interval before getting back into the second set, we can get on and get into some of the postural correctives. So for all of these isometric activities, we're going to be doing 2 to 3 sets of 10 repetitions, holding at the end position, fighting for more range of motion for 3 seconds prior to relaxing to complete 1 rep. So the first postural corrective exercise we're going to get in today is called the Brugger exercise. And this activity is designed to really help us with that rounded shoulder position most of us tend to struggle with. So for this activity, we'll set up in that same start position we talked about at the beginning of the video. And from there, what we're going to be visualizing is that we're going to try and turn our thumbs as far towards the back wall as we possibly can, externally rotating the shoulders and pinching the shoulder blades tight together. And we're going to fight for that for about 3 seconds, really working against our own limited mobility. From there, we relax out for rep number 1. Back in for rep number 2, hold for 3 seconds, pinching the shoulder blades together, feeling that you're fighting to turn the thumbs over as far as you possibly can, and back out. From the back, we should see the shoulder blades stay nice and tight to the rib cage as we open everything up. Now don't feel you need to raise the arms. The arms will naturally raise on their own as you turn the thumbs backwards. So the next activity is another external rotation exercise to just really once again help open up the chest and get that rotator cuff firing a little bit. So this one I like to call the shoulder robot. We're going to set up with the elbows out to the side at shoulder height, thumbs up towards the sky, and then from there we're just going to rotate the arms to drive the thumbs back, fight for the range of motion while pinching the shoulder blades together for 3 seconds, and return to complete 1 rep. We want to make sure that the elbows are straight out to the sides. They haven't sneaked forward or too far backwards. So we keep them straight out to the side, rotate, fight for that range of motion, and really feel that work in the mid-back with each individual rep that you're doing. So the last activity we're going to cover for today is going to be a shoulder wall slide. Now you can do this activity seated on the ground or standing, and just make sure that you've got your tailbone and your shoulders against the wall. Now, when we get set up, we'll set up in a W position, and then from there, I want to think I'm going to keep the back of my forearm, back of my wrist, back of my hands, everything in contact with the wall, including the elbows, as I reach up towards the sky to get to a Y position. So we're keeping that nice, slow, controlled tempo, 3 to 5 seconds per rep. Now, if you're limited, you would fight against that range of motion for 3 seconds to produce a good quality stretch and come back down. Once you can get to this full overhead Y extension, we've pretty much seen we have the mobility we need out of that shoulder. Now, a lot of people will find the wall slide to be extremely difficult. So if you're having issues getting into the start position or getting much more than very minimal range of motion, an easy way to modify this is to take a little bit of a spacer. So something like a yoga block works perfectly, and set it up against the tailbone to change the angle of your setup. From there, that will allow you to get a more comfortable overhead position if you're a little bit more limited for range of motion. The other modification that we can do for this activity is we can use a dowel. So for this one, we would set up, same position with that tailbone and shoulders against the wall. We'd set the forearms against the wall, back of the wrists, elbows in contact with the elbows at 90 degrees. And then from there, we can reach up towards the sky, find for and fight that stretch for 3 seconds, and return to the start position. Any of these variants really work. Ideally, what I'd like to see is we can start with that spacer if we have to, progress to the dowel without the spacer, and eventually go to that full W to Y pattern. And that's all we have for this week. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Daryl with Campbell's Precision Kinetics, and we will see you next week as we get into some more static stretching for the shoulder.